sometimes, I mean, these things just leap as obvious into the front page here. Mayor de Blasio, again, continuing what's gotten to be a big theme now among Democrats, that it's time to rectify some class issues here. And if they're not going to pony up, then he is not going to give up. And he's going to try to rectify the societal ills to Deirdre Bolton and the upside of inequality author Ed Conard. Ed, the message seems to be consistent now. And in a week we've seen, Congresswoman Cortez talk about hiking the taxes and people like you to 70%. The Budget Committee chief taking over in the House talking about raising corporate taxes to 28%. That variations of this class warfare theme are alive and well.
Yeah, well, it's not surprising we're going to get close to an $800 billion deficit this year, so there's going to be a lot of pressure to increase taxes. It's easy to say...
But one thing if it went to deficit relief, though.
Well, yeah, although I'd say even if you did the 10% on everybody earning over $10 million, that even if it had no effect on growth, only raises about $30 billion a year.
Yeah, Joe Lieberman had pointed that out.
If you extend it to everybody in the top bracket, which would be an absolute growth killer by, I think, almost any serious economist's admission, when you factor in the Congressional Budget Office's effect on growth, it only raises about $150 billion a year. So it's a long way between there and the $800 billion we're going to need.
Where is this going? It's setting up a theme for 2020, though, isn't it?
It is setting up a theme. A lot of people say that, as the New York Post calls Mayor Bill de Blasio Mayor Robin Hood, that he would actually like to be on the national platform. And because the Democratic Party seems to be going more and more left, that he actually wants to be able to have some very specific talking points if he does, in fact, put in a bid.
But didn't his city make concessions to Amazon to come in?
Well, that's what his critics, and you made me laugh there with the $3 billion. There are tons of people who say, how can you be so hypocritical as to say that the money is in the wrong hands and then give Amazon, a company that is one of our most profitable, right, $1 trillion market cap plus or minus given the day, a $3 billion tax incentive here in Long Island City. He's trying to, I guess, appeal to people that he says have been unfairly served by a broader agenda. As part of that speech yesterday, he really criticized a lot of Republican administrations, sort of going back to Reagan right up through President Trump.
But I think he's indirectly going after even the Clinton administration. We were saying during the break, I don't think a Bill Clinton could be nominated in this party.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of the things that he's trying to do are almost Bernie Sanders-esque, right? He's talking about seizing buildings from landlords who don't treat their tenants properly and setting up at nonprofits. He's talking about providing a pension system for New York City workers who don't have it. He's talking about expanding pre-K to more children citywide, which are all, of course, worthy goals. I think then the conversation, as always, gets back to who pays for it and how. And we know Mayor Bloomberg wrestled with that as well and said, listen, I can't have the upper middle class and rich families leave the city because then I lose the tax revenue and then everybody suffers.
No, why couldn't we just expand the tax base? I mean, half the people in this country are not paying any income tax, federal income taxes. And now I'm not denying the fact that many are retired, many are former military, many, pay FICA and some of these others. So I'm not dismissing that or calling it, an awful, awful phenomenon here. What I am saying is it wasn't that long ago during the Eisenhower years that 90% were paying some form of federal income tax. And now it's under 50%, and much of that burden borne by the wealthy. And that's a zero-sum game, isn't it?
Well, I think it's very difficult politically because I don't think you have support from the Democrats or the Republicans. You saw the last Republican proposal, which reduced middle-class taxes. The median income earner in the United States consumes more government services this year than they pay in taxes this year, which means they contribute nothing to their Social Security, nothing to their Medicare. They don't pay for the Social Security and Medicare of the current retarees, and they contribute nothing to the poor.
And we don't
they
look
support
at it
those
in percentage
programs.
terms. Percentage terms, lower middle income people got the biggest tax cut. We got in aggregate terms, obviously you give a 1% cut to someone earning $1 million. It's a bigger number. So we play fast and loose with the data. So Republicans are loath to go too aggressively here, right?
I think they are because I think they've boxed themselves in a corner with what they have done. So now that we have a large deficit, we're going to see pressure for higher taxes, and everyone's going to don't tax you, don't tax me, tax like other guy behind the tree.
No, you're right. You know what I worry about with that is neither party will use whatever revenue they get through whatever means to pay down the deficit. And the irony of that might be used as an excuse, but the excuse is that it'll just lead to more spending.
Yeah, and it's a worry. I mean, Standard Chartered published a report yesterday saying as far as the world's most powerful economy in 2020, at least according to their research, we lose that title to China. Standard Chartered says we're never getting it back. Then it becomes India. And by, I think, 2023, Asia is going to be 35% of the world's economy, which they predict at that time is the U.S. plus Europe. So I actually do think it's worth getting our financial house in order and not having a credit downgrade, for example.
Yeah, that's a threat. Is that a real threat, the credit downgrade?
I don't think it's, if you look at the markets don't think it's a real threat. You look at the futures market for bonds, they expect no change in the interest rate next year. If you really thought it was a threat to the creditworthiness of the United States, I think you'd start to see those things in the markets, and you don't see that today. I mean, if you also look at household net worth, it's never been higher, and it's grown faster than the debt has grown. So the truth is America is stronger financially than it's ever been.
Do you think the president's going to be reelected?
I think there's a high probability that the president's elected. I think I grew up in Detroit with a lot of blue-collar buddies who worked in the auto industry. They are adamant supporters of President Trump. I think he's going to be very hard to beat in Pennsylvania, Ohio,
Well, you were an
Michigan,
adamant
and Wisconsin.
supporter of and friend to Mitt Romney. What did you think of his op-ed?
Well, I thought he criticized the president in a vacuum. I think you have to criticize one real-world alternative to another. I think the alternative to President Trump is President Elizabeth Warren and Democratic control of definitely the House and probably the Senate. If you prefer that alternative, I think his criticism weakens the president. It doesn't rein in his counterproductive behavior, which is, I think, what Mitt might hope that it does. And so I think it weakens it, which in effect strengthens the other real-world alternative. And I don't think that's what the Republicans need from Mitt today.
Well, 92% of them, a pretty high number, like the president, right? Of Republicans, I'm saying.
Of Republicans,
right.
Of the party. And I think, as we've been following this shutdown, though, we're now the longest one, right? And so I think with, 800,000 people not getting paid today, I mean, we're going to see how this plays out. But those federal workers who, I mean, I've been listening to first-person accounts. I mean, some people are in really dire straits right now.
Yeah, and air traffic controllers are the first group to say, you know what, Mr. President, we're suing you. They filed a lawsuit against this government shutdown and pointing the finger and their lawyers' fingers at him.